Welcome back to Luck on Sunday. Very shortly, we'll be chatting to a young jockey, and I say young jockey, he's only 22 years of age, who's had a fabulous time in 2021 aboard this horse.
Mishrif is roused to the lead. Charlatan tries to fight back. It's doing so. Mishrif, Charlatan. Mishrif conquers the cup.
Mishrif, the leader. Rhino Genesis loves only you over on the inside. Mishrif, it's nose in front of the Sheema Classic. A Sheema Classic comes up and it's Mishrif.
This is the Mishrif we've seen the world over, producing his best form back in the UK, and Mishrif absolutely blitzes them in the Juddmonte.
A Saudi Cup, Sheema Classic, and a first domestic Group 1 in the Juddmonte International. David, I'm surprised that there's not a huge grin across your face for the money, if not nothing else.
No, just it's nice to watch them replays back, all three of them big wins, all in a row. Hopefully there'll be more memories to come in the near future.
I mean, I introduced you by saying 22 years of age, because I almost find it hard, because it feels like you've been around for longer. I remember when you turned professional, back with the whole Pilaster, Roger Varian, Goodwood time. Sure. How much do you think things have progressed, and the speed of progression? Has it been expected? Has it been quicker than you thought? Yeah,
obviously I won Champion Apprentice in my second season riding, which that was all seemed a bit of a rush, and didn't go out that season expecting to be Champion Apprentice. Since I won that, since I obviously turned professional fairly early in my career, it's a big step. It's okay riding lots of winners as an apprentice. Everyone wants to use you for your 7.5 and £3 claim, but once you get thrown into the deep end at 18 as I was, it takes a while to adjust and to be confident in your own ability to get the job done. And thankfully I've been given many opportunities since I have turned professional. As you said, Pilaster was my first ride as a fully fledged jockey in a Group 2 to win the Lily Langtry for my boss, Mr. Varian, and for Cheveley Park. That was a fantastic day, and that gave me the confidence at the right time that I probably needed as a young rider. And
nothing more of a success story and a dream horse, I can imagine, for you than Mishrif. And we'll come to Mishrif a little bit later on, but I'd love to go back to the start, because, see, reading up about you and knowing a bit about your background, and you are, on both sides of the pedigree, bred for the job. I mean, it couldn't, when you talk about Galileo out of Ouija board, for example, it's kind of the pedigree for David Egan to succeed in racing, isn't it?
Yeah, you could say so. I know with the book one, Tattersall's October yearling sales, I might have got a spot in book one for sure. With my family, both flat and jump racing, I'm in a very privileged position. I can't forget that, but along with the position I've worked tremendously hard to get where I am.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I don't know whether you know anything about this, but the Australian Cricket Academy, everybody who goes into the Australian Cricket Academy, when they come in, they give them all the same speech. They all say to them, well done, you've got amazing talent, so well done for that, but it's nothing for you to be proud of, because those genes belong to your parents. What you do with that talent is what you will eventually be proud of. So at what point did you realise that it's going to be hard work, and I'm going to have to do everything in my power to make a success of the genes and of the opportunities?
Yeah, I think from a young age, seeing my mother take up training ranks and my father being a jockey all his life, seeing him work hard day in, day out, it's grown up inside a race, and I understand the game from a very young age, from maybe other people looking to come into racing at 15, 16, 17, I kind of got that insight into what it takes to really, really make it, and I think I've used that to my advantage for sure.
What was the first experience that you think maybe set you on the path? Obviously, we know your dad, John, your mum, the Hughes side of the family, etc. But your own personal experience of when you felt, this is really made me realise what I'm going to do. Was it when you went to Willie McCreary's, perhaps, or something like that?
Absolutely. So growing up in Ireland, I used to ride out for my grandfather, Desi Hughes. I used to ride the quiet jumpers, and look, I could ride, but I wouldn't class myself as a outstanding young rider as a kid. I was probably a little below average, you could say,
Really?
with my pedigree. But yeah, my grandfather made the right decision, really looking at it in hindsight. If he hadn't have said that to me that day, I mightn't be where I am. He told me to go down to Willie McCurry's, who trained down the road, and he said, if you want to be a jockey, you want to be a flat jockey, you're small enough, so go and give it a go. And went down, asked Mr. McCurry for a job, and yeah, I was there from 14, 15, 16 until I left school, and I learnt a tremendous lot there.
What did you learn? What were the things that woke you up to the job?
Yeah, learned, I suppose, well, at least get run away with a lot. That's for starters. I learned how hard it was. I was probably spoiled riding out at home. Used to ride just the quiet horses. There I was probably putting the more challenging rides, and I had to sort of wake up and realise it's time to improve and get better. And week on week I think I got better, and probably Willie probably said the same, and by the time I left, it's probably made me the young man I was to head off to England.
Did you have any role models? Were there any other riders perhaps that you leaned on? Obviously you have the benefit of a family, but was there anyone outside of the family unit that maybe you looked up to or spoke to? Yeah,
look, being surrounded by a lot of people in racing, obviously my family, but then we'd have a lot of family friends in racing, so I've had a lot of advice from a lot of different people, which is a big advantage to have, so you can take little bits off. Instead of having one role model, you could take little bits off 10 or 20 people who I'd have close relationships with, and yeah, they're all a big help and greatly appreciated. You made it over to the British Racing School, is that right? And how did that switch come about, and when did you decide, I'm going to leave Ireland, I'm going to go over to Britain? Yeah, obviously at 16, to my mother's dislike, I wanted to leave school and become a jockey, and I felt to give myself the best opportunity to become a successful jockey as an apprentice, I thought England was the best way to go. Was that hard as a 16-year-old, saying, I want to leave home, I want to leave the protection of where I've grown up my whole life, or where I've spent such a large proportion of my life, to go away, basically? Yeah, as we touched on before, I've been surrounded by a lot of good people that I could get advice and get their point of view, and obviously probably for my mother it was hard to see her son move away from home and go over to England, but Dad was obviously, he stopped riding for a number of years to run Forestdown Stud, a stud near the Curragh, and he was going back race riding, so it was the perfect opportunity that I could leave home but also stay close to my dad, that he could sort of keep me on the straight and narrow for my upcoming years in Newmarket. And people often talk about little moments that make a difference, luck perhaps. And at the end of the British Racing School spell, am I right in thinking that's when you first had a taste of time at Roger Varian's? Absolutely, How did that come about? So at the end of my, I went on a 4-week course in the British Racing School, which sort of anyone going into racing, no matter what level of riding ability, they have to do some sort of foundation course there, which is fantastic facility there at the British Racing School. So at the end of my 3 weeks, on the last week, we were given the opportunity to go out and ride out at the stable, and my instructor, Egan Marshall, his partner, Mike Marshall, was assistant trainer to Roger Varian at the time. Just so happened with Henry Cecil. Exactly, yeah. He was. That was the deciding factor, whether it was preempted or I was just one of the 2 young apprentices or upcoming apprentices at the time that were sent off to Roger Varian's. And at the end of my week, we had a chat, and he offered me a job as sort of there and ride out, not so much as I never expected to be in the position I am a couple of years later, but it just all built up, and tremendously appreciated to everyone at the British Racing School to give me that opportunity. And what was it like, having obviously had the experience that you did in Ireland at Willie McCurry's, etc., then gone to the racing school and then gone into that big a yard at Newmarket? At Roger Varian's is as big as there is at Racing's HQ. What was that change of scenery like for you? Yeah, massive. Look, I'd understood big training establishments growing up, but to actually go in and be one of the people, part of the cog in the wheel, you could say, even though I was just going in there riding out a couple of lots in the morning, every little helps. And I think just to realise the mass amount of people, like Roger, he could have 50 or 100 people working for him, and to see that many people working for one organisation, it was unbelievable. And to see all the good horses. So when I was going in there riding out, Kingston Hill had just won the Leger and second in the Derby, and so many tremendously good horses, and to get the opportunity to be part of that team was a real honour for me at such a young age.
And it's quite a large group of jockeys that Rogers has assembled over the years. Obviously there's Andrea, there's yourself, there's Jack, there's Ray. What's that camaraderie like just within the yard?
Yeah, look, obviously going in there, I looked up to Jack and Andrea. They've been a huge help teaching me from 16 years of age, riding work with them every day, giving them little tips. Before I even drove, they used to give me lifts racing, so a big thanks has to go out to them two lads, Jack and Andrea. Obviously they've seen me progress and riding alongside them now, and I call them very good friends as well.
To win the apprentice title as quickly as you did, do you now, or have you reflected on the time and said, you know, that was some achievement? Yeah,
it all happened in a bit of a flash, really. Obviously I rode, I think, 6 winners my first season, and then I went off to America and sort of learned time and things like that, like a lot of apprentices do nowadays, and came back, and I think I had a winner for Mr. Ellsworth, a filly called Tis But a Dream at Ascot in sort of May or June time. It wasn't the Royal Meeting, it was before that. Yeah. She had 8 stone and I was claiming 7 pounds, so she had 7 stone 7 on her back, and obviously I was very, very light back then, and I think having that Ascot winner, it was on ITV, walking in, getting interviewed afterwards, I think that was a big help in my young career to kind of get my name out there and just show I could deliver on the big stage. And from that day I just felt it snowballed. I rode my first double, then later on in the season I rode my first treble at Chepstow, and I remember a lot from that season. It was all quick, but you kind of take out kind of main pinpoints in throughout the season, and all that to accumulate and come up against a very good jockey in Kieran Schumacher, who put it right to the wire, and thankfully I won by 1 winner. We both went to Catterick to get as many winners as we could. We both skipped Ascot to go to get the winners, and we both drew blank on the day. So no, it was good to win, but Kieran was very good in defeat.
But you must know, David, that very often through the history of horse racing we speak about apprentices that do well and then fall away. We never hear of them again, or they drop down the ladder, so much so that you wonder what's happened to all their potential. And you must have been aware of that, yet you turned pro obviously pretty quickly, even though you were still in contention for another apprentice title the following year. Were you ever conscious of the decision being, or was there ever any uncertainty about that decision?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, as I said before, it's a big step to jump from an apprentice, even though you've lost your claim, to go out and be a fully fledged jockey. You're riding off level weights with the best in the world: Frankie Dettori, Ryan Moore, William Buick, James Doyle. That's just to name a few of the quality of riders we have here in the UK. Is phenomenal. And it was obviously a big step, but I had a lot of good people around me and a lot of good support, which every young jockey needs, and I was given opportunities at a young age, and Pilaster was just one example of that.
Yeah. You also mentioned about going abroad, and if I remember correctly, you've done a lot of travelling: America, India, Australia. I think you were in India just before COVID hit, and you managed to get out. I mean,
absolutely.
Is that something that your dad has instilled in getting experience around the world to make yourself a better rider?
Yeah, he's gone through it firsthand, so he knows exactly what you need to get to go and make it. And from a young age, even before I'd even got my license, he always instilled in me how important it was to travel the world and see the different styles of riding. I know when I was working for Mr. Varian, I went off to Australia before I even had my licence. I was still 16. Right. He sent me off to a friend of his, Gavin Slater, in Perth. So I did a couple of weeks there, track work, obviously family friend to Dad, Gavin was, and although he could keep an eye on me, it was a big sort of jump, never been away on my own before, and it's all sort of a feather in my cap. The following year I went to America to Jose Corrales, who was a big help to me in sort of becoming more stylish and stronger in the saddle and learning times and track work and what have you. And I went back the following season back to Jose, and the next winter I went to India, as you said, which was an experience in itself, but that was makes it fairly sharp. India, the way they ride over there, it's very fast at the gates and a bit rough and ready, but it's all a big help in moulding my riding career.
Can I just ask? Obviously, you seem pretty mature already for a 22. You've seen mature for a while, but were you homesick? Did you get sad in those moments when you go away to Australia? You know, just because you're still a kid, going away and being away from home. I mean, is that tough?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever felt homesick, because when you're going, it's all. I think when I'm riding horses, it's all business. That's what I'm comfortable and happy with. Whether if I was travelling abroad to the other side of the world, maybe going to college or university, something I mightn't be as comfortable with, and around people I enjoy. I might find it a bit harder, but because once I'm around horses, I'm at ease, and I think that's a big help in stopping me from being homesick. But of course, maybe 30, 40 years ago, people travelling away to America and Australia might have been a lot difficult. A postcard or a phone call once a fortnight might have been all they had, but with WhatsApp, Skype, all these things, you're a lot closer to home, and the world's a lot smaller place. Yeah,
that's the benefit of being part of this world now, unlike us when we have to put 10p in the meter and collect call, actually. You probably don't even know what a collect call is, do you?
Absolutely not. Something to do with a telephone box, is it?
Whatever we talk about, David, a jockey cannot do it and cannot rise to the top unless you get on the right horse. You mentioned Pilaster, and horses have got you into the position. We ended up with a contract riding for Prince Faisal. And that's brought you to Mishriff. So let's talk about this horse, because I imagine that, I mean, the smile on your face says it all. I mean, the first time you sat on Mishriff, what did you think of it?
First time I sat on Mishrif was at Nottingham when he broke his maiden, and from what I remember of the day, it was very, very testing ground. It was probably this time of year, and he was a horse that I've obviously watched his replays, and I got the call to ride a maiden on his third start for Mr. Gosden, which was a big deal. Yeah. I'd ridden probably two winners for Prince Faisal for Mr. Gosden on two other horses, and I was lucky enough to get on board him that day and win a maiden by a real distance. But the way he travelled into his race, he's a horse from his 2-year-old days. He had that sort of trademark low head carriage as everyone sees nowadays, and the way he travelled into his race on the heavy ground and to quicken away and to hit the line like he did. And I looked around, and not so much to win a margin, but the feel he gave me at that early stage, I knew he was something special. And I explained on Racing TV that day what I thought, and he literally could be anything I said on air, and I wasn't far wrong. But to be fair, I didn't think he'd go to the lengths he has done. Yeah. To keep the riding him when he went to the Saudi Derby was a big deal for me. It was my first sort of travel abroad to ride an international horse on the big stage, and he ran a tremendous race, finishing second. Back then he was a horse that had a tendency to jump a stride slow, which we know on the dirt is a big disadvantage, but he used that experience to good stead, and obviously had a tremendous 3-year-old campaign, winning a French Derby and going on to big things, and then winning the Saudi Cup the following year was tremendous. Because
you say he could, in that interview you said he could be anything, but he's more than anything. He's everything, because he can do it all over a variety of trips, over a variety of surfaces. So take me to the Saudi Cup. and the confidence that you would have had going into that race, because clearly the Americans have the advantage on dirt. That's the way it's always been. How confident were you that you could lower their colours?
For sure. I think that track experience he had the year before was a big advantage to him. Although the American horses were used to running on dirt, I think Mishrif could have been one of the only horses, international horses anywhere in the field, that had raced in Riyadh. Just watching him there, he was a long way back from the Japanese horse turning into the straight and off the bridle, a long way from home, but thankfully he was able to get himself into a lovely position in behind the leaders this day, and to track the two American horses into the straight and to sort of be in a ding-dong battle with Charlatan and to pass them inside the last 100 yards was a feeling I don't think I'll ever get. Obviously I was very ecstatic crossing the line, and a lot of emotions went through my head, but it was a tremendous night, and I was just so happy for the horse because I knew what he could do, and I knew he had a real chance. Maybe a lot of people disregarded him because they thought the American horses were so much more superior on dirt, but the way he was training that week, I rode him out every morning when he got to Riyadh, and I knew what he could do, and I was happy he went in and got it done. Well,
he did get it done, 9 furlongs on dirt, but then go to the Dubai World Cup meeting, and some people thinking, well, he'll go for the Dubai World Cup, right? Because it's only a furlong more and it's also on the dirt. But no, he goes to a mile and a half on the turf and a good field as well. Chronogenesis serves it up to you. Talk me through this. You're near the back on the outside.
Yeah, this is just a perfect example of how much a legendary trainer Mr. Gosden is, and with the help of Thady, who went out and travelled with Mishrif throughout the season, I was given free rein to ride him this day. We had obviously stepping up 3 furlongs, which is a big change, and back on turf we're obviously going to have to ride him very differently. He's quite an exuberant horse in his races, and to switch him off at the back of the field, I was going down the back straight looking, I had sort of 10 lengths to make up, and on such a top class field it was going to be a big challenge, but I had the just full confidence in Mishrif and what he could accomplish, and the race worked out perfectly. He relaxed, he was in a good rhythm, and showed a good turn of foot up the straight, and what an accomplishment to win the richest race on dirt over 9 furlongs, and to travel all the way back to England, turn around, come back to Maidan to train for the week, and to win an international Group 1 over a mile and a half on turf. It's a tremendous accomplishment from a horse, and I don't even remember a horse that's done such a thing in recent times anyway. Maybe you might be able to tell me of another horse, but to do what he's accomplished on dirt and turf over various distances, I can't think of one.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to be crass, because I don't want to know anything at all about what you do, but you're a young guy as well, winning all that money. I mean, that would blow a lot of people's minds to know that sort of money is now, the richest race in the world. You took the Saudi Cup, then the Sheema Classic, which is worth a lot of money. I mean, do you ever think about stuff like that, or does someone else deal with that for you?
I think after we won the Sheema Classic, my flight was at 2 o'clock in the morning that night, and
your first class flight, obviously.
Yeah, business. But we'll straight into hotel quarantine.
Right.
At the Holiday Inn, so that brought me back to earth. And I think although it was hard to go into quarantine, it was nice to just sort of regroup and relax and maybe realise what I've accomplished in such a short period of time, and got to grips on how good a horse Mishrif is, and to how lucky I was to be in the position to ride him, and all thanks to Prince Faisal for having the faith in such a young person to ride one of the best horses in the world. He could have gone for any other rider in the world, so look, in that regard I'm very thankful to Prince Faisal, Ted Voughton, Mr. Gosden to have the faith in me to put me on a horse such as Mishrif.
And I suppose what's really special this year, and great that he won those 2 big races abroad, but it must mean a lot for you to get a domestic Group 1 win aboard Mishrif, and in the manner that he did in the Juddmonte International. Yeah,
I think that was the long-term seasonal plan, that his main goal was to win the Juddmonte International. Obviously, dropping back to a mile and a quarter, it's obviously a stallion-making race. It's the highest-rated race on average in the world the year before previously anyway, and look, to do what he did, it was obviously very high pressure for me to get the job done, and I was just happy that I could able to prove myself. I could obviously put Mishriff in the position to win, but look, Mishriff does what he does, and he gets the job done, and I'm just a lucky pilot to steer him in the right direction.
Now, we're less than a week away from the Champion Stakes, and I hate to say this, but the one blot on his copybook is last year's Champion Stakes. But is that simply down to the ground, and with the likelihood of better ground this year, you're not worried at all?
Yeah, obviously, Mr. Gosden explained last year, and he wasn't comfortable on the ground, and he showed himself. He didn't even finish in the first four. You couldn't even see him in the finish. So obviously you just put a pure line through that, and the fact that he went straight to Saudi from there to go win the best race in the world was an example of how you could just put a line through that. And I think the way he ran at Ascot, finishing behind the Derby winner Adair, giving him so much weight over a mile and a half, and it's a stiff mile and a half. I think that just stretched him, and you could see Adair doing his best work in the final furlong, whereas Mishriff's run was probably just petered out the last 100 yards. Yeah. So over a stiff mile and a quarter, I think on turf that's his optimum trip, and with the weather forecast looking good, it's looking hopeful for next Saturday.
Win, lose or draw, just describe how much you love this horse.
Oh, he's a horse that's going to hopefully make my career, and he's a horse, look, hopefully I've got a long, successful career riding many good horses, and I think Mishriff will always have a special place in my heart.
David, thank you so much for coming in and chatting to us today. It's been lovely to hear you talk about your family, how you've made it as a young rider, and the experiences aboard the mighty Mishriff, and we wish you the very best of luck at Kipco British Champions Day on Saturday on Mishriff. David Egan has been a splendid guest today on Luck on Sunday.
Subscribe to Racing TV to be notified when more Luck on Sunday videos are appearing online, and don't forget to join me for the show every Sunday morning from 9 o'clock with the best guests.